Hello, my name is Rabbi Abram Goodstein, and I gave this sermon on May 28th. In this week's Torah portion, the honeymoon period is over between the Israelites and Adonai. It's been over 2 years since the Israelites have left Egypt, and they've finally begun to wander the Sinai in earnest. The novelty of being a free people has worn off, and the days have begun to feel like endless monotony as they wander aimlessly through the Sinai. And so, not everything is going well in paradise. The bickering starts out intense. The Torah explains that the people began to complain bitterly to Adonai. And we don't know what exactly the people are bickering about, but Adonai's reaction is not great. In response, Adonai sends a roaring fire down to earth, its flames licking the outskirts of the Israelite camp. Only after Moses supplicates to God to stop the fire does the fire begin to calm down. And I find this reaction unfortunate, especially with my experience as a parent. I would have imagined that Adonai has several tools to manage complaints beseeched by the Israelites. After all, what did Adonai expect from a people on their own for the first time? They're going to have a lot of needs. As a parent, when my child acts out, I try to meet his complaints in a calm and rational way. I try not to get angry at my son for complaining too much, because I do not want my anger to get in the way of a possibly beneficial conversation. And that's what makes me sad about this interaction. Adonai could have turned the Israelite complaining into a beneficial conversation, where Adonai reminds the Israelites there is a price and certain hardships that come with freedom. Instead, Adonai grows angry at the complaints and acts out on that anger. It's almost as if Adonai is learning how to be God to the Israelites, as the Israelites learn how to be chosen by Adonai. It's a funny thing. Unfortunately, things get more strained from here. As any experienced teacher could tell you in critiquing a teacher in training, getting mad at your students won't make them behave the way you want them to. So the next complaint by the Israelites seems really petty. The Israelites lament and wail over the lack of meat in their diet. And I'd like to remind everyone that at this point, the Israelites are subsisting on manna, which many people consider to be a miracle. So their complaint seems extra trivial since no one else in the world has had food literally given to them without any work. Even worse, however, is that they reminisce about the variety of food available to them in Egypt, including fish, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. That's all they can talk about. So first, let's notice that the moment they demand meat in their diet, they then reminisce instead mostly about fruits and vegetables. And I make this observation not to point out the gluttony of the Israelites, which many commentators do, but to show that this isn't a logical problem we're seeing here. The Israelites are certainly upset, but I don't think it is about food. For the Israelites, the lack of the variety of food is the low-hanging fruit, excuse the pun, of their problems. There is a lot of other problems occurring here. For example, I can't imagine the abrupt change one experiences when identifying as a slave and then having to identify as a nomadic people. It has to be a rough transition. So instead of summoning an army of licensed therapists to help the Israelites manage their epic change, Adonai threatens the Israelites with meat. And you may not be sure what it's like to be threatened by meat. I was curious too, how Adonai would make do with such a weird threat. Well, it turns out, here's how it happened. God summoned flocks of quail and sends them to the Israelites. Then, just as the Israelites are chewing this cooked quail, but before they swallow it, God strikes the Israelites with a severe plague. They then called the place where this happened Kivrath HaTavah, which means buried are those who had a craving. And this name indicates that God struck just those who ate the quail with plague. Once again, I am not thrilled with God's response here. There were lots of ways Adonai could have chosen to show Adonai's power. Giving the Israelites poisonous quail would not have been my first choice. And Adonai lets Adonai's anger guide Adonai's actions. And again, it seems as if Adonai is trying to figure out what the role of God means for Adonai and the Israelites. Now, there is a third opportunity for Adonai to manage complaints better. Now, I would argue that Adonai drops the ball here too. This time, the complaints come from Miriam and Aaron, who are dissatisfied with Moses marrying a Cushite woman. And the marriage does send up some red flags. I have no idea what the ethnicity of Cushites are, but it's obvious they are not Israelites. And I can understand Miriam and Aaron's trepidation at this marriage. Why couldn't Moses finally marry an Israelite woman? After all, Moses' first wife, Zipporah, is also non-Israelite. She's a Midianite. Instead, the leader of the Israelites and only person allowed to directly communicate to Adonai is 2 for 2 when it comes to marrying non-Israelites. Adonai, instead of seeing Aaron and Miriam's side of things, is upset by their reaction. Adonai yells at Aaron and Miriam and afflicts Miriam, and just Miriam, not Aaron, with skin disease. The whole Israelite camp has to wait for her to be healed again before they can move on with their wandering. So, I don't want to spend this whole sermon second-guessing Adonai's choices as Adonai begins a relationship with the Israelites in earnest. Because, obviously, Adonai at one point does something right. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here criticizing Adonai's choices today. I happen to believe the truest wisdom we see here is a canon that shows us Adonai making these mistakes. Now, this might be a controversial thing to say, since most commentaries, both ancient and modern, use the basic assumption that Adonai as God is ineffable. But I think we can derive more meaning from this portion by watching Adonai struggle and discovering that Adonai is not a quick learner. Once again, if us Jews are the end result, then we know at one point Adonai becomes wildly successful. Yet every year, as we move through the same Torah portions, Adonai's struggles are laid bare again and again, as if Adonai says, please learn from my mistakes. Since we are fortunate enough to see all of our patriarchs make mistakes in our Torah, it makes sense to me that the Torah would also display Adonai's mistakes. And as a living text, I believe this is for our benefit, to show us we are allowed to struggle. We are allowed to make mistakes. And we are even allowed to be slow learners. In fact, we may discover something incredibly meaningful from them. Thank you.